Welcome to the Janine Deanna podcast. I'm Janine, and I'm joined by my best friend and the love of my life, Dana Lattery.
We're partners in both life and business, which, as you can imagine, has produced some incredibly valuable conversations from both a female and a male perspective. Through wisdom, vulnerability, and humor, we want to share what we've learned from our trials and triumphs. We hope to encourage and challenge you to live more intentionally in both your business and your relationships.
We also hope that you leave each episode feeling more joyful, energetic, and focused on your journey ahead. Thanks for joining us. Now let's jump on in.
What's happening?
Hello.
Oh, hi there. How's upstairs?
Hi. How's the babes?
It's pretty good. Janine. Welcome back for another episode of the Janine Deanna Show, and this one is episode 2.
We're excited to chat about something that has been an enormous part of our winter.
Oh, yeah.
Something I didn't know I was getting into, but you took my hand and quite literally took my hand multiple times and took me to where it is. Yeah, to where it is we're going to talk about today. And this was really important for me to want to talk about. We don't kind of know how the mountain climbing is going to continue as our seasonal work picks up. And so this was like a moment to really reflect on the impact that climbing has given us over the last couple months, because it really started out of a need to have winter activity, specifically more for you. You can chat about that in a sec, but I just feel like this is a really great time to kind of have, after having done it a few times, to be able to sit back and say, whoa.
I think
incredible stuff we learned.
Yeah, I think a big thing came out of during the mountains and just kind of motivating each other. It was like, wow, that's actually a life lesson, and not just a lesson to help me or you to get to the top. But and as we kept doing this more and more, it started to be these huge revelations of like, wow, and that would fill our cup, which would take us back into our week of running our businesses. And for you, coaching the women and just being like, well, my cup is full, but I am perplexed with metaphors, analogies, thought-provoking conversations all these crazy things that I don't know. Does everybody get that deep when they're climbing, or is it just the fact that I was lack of oxygen and forced me maybe to start thinking about things to take me out of some of the pain that you're in? I don't know. What do you think it was for you?
I think I was amazed at how when you don't know what you don't know. And the first climb I went on, I remember being very scared and really trying to work through, well, what is the fear that I'm having with this? And I remember in the parking lot, the fear really was that I physically wasn't going to be able to make it to the top. I never actually feared that mentally, because I really embody resilience in my life. So I felt like I'm going to be able to make it, but I was so afraid of how much it would physically hurt to make it. So I remember that being the fear, but I also remember having many moments along the way when I'm like, oh, this is a very deep life lesson happening here on our journey towards our goals. So what I was beautifully surprised by the endless metaphors of what climbing a mountain brought to my attention along the way. Hence why we're doing this today, because we've had many conversations about it, but I just felt like, gosh, if more people kind of, got out, we'll get into that, just get doing this. The impact it has on your life goes far beyond the moments of one step in front of the other up the mountain.
Absolutely. So, without much further ado, why are you here listening to lessons from climbing a mountain, lessons from a mountain? Because we've taken these lessons, and as we go through these lessons, we're going to relate them very closely to being an entrepreneur, being in the business world, and hopefully at the end of the show, the takeaways that you guys have is that you're inspired and you learn that mostly the journey, really, is there a destination? I don't know, but the journey is the magic. And so as we kind of go through these, I think we have 5 lessons. There's 5 million, but 5 to just try to keep this show within our hour time that we've allotted for ourselves. But that's the takeaways that we want you guys to have, is in your business, in your entrepreneurial struggles and your victories, is relating this kind of mountain climbing. So if mountain climbing is not of interest to you, I highly encourage you stick around, because you're going to have a few aha moments. I can promise you that. And I can promise you that if you stick around to the end and you take all 5 of these lessons and put them into play, that you're going to see massive improvements in your personal life, in your family life, and most probably importantly, relating to this kind of live stream / podcast, is your business.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I agree, because I lived it, so I know. And I'm living it. Lived it. I want to start. Are we cool if we jump right in? Get started with the first one that I had learned was, and I love the simplicity of it, was one foot in front of the other. Just putting one foot in front of the other and keep going. And there are so many other thoughts that go through your mind in the journey to the top. Even when I would get close to the top of a mountain and I would see it there, and I would think, how am I going to get there? One step in front of the other. It was that simple. And it felt like the relation back to me with my business was that many times we overcomplicate it, or we try to assume what's going to happen, 50 steps from now. How am I going to make it past that? Or 60 steps from now? And I'm losing focus of the fact that I just have to put one foot in front of the other right where I'm at, right in that moment, because that moment's all I have. And what I found when I did that was there was never a moment that wasn't applicable. There was never a moment where the focus wasn't just one foot, take the next step and take the next step. And when we did get closer to the top and we started scrambling a little bit more, just like moving all over the rocks and whatnot, it required a little bit more intention with a next step, where I'd have to stop and think a little bit harder. But I just had to think through, where am I putting my foot for the next step, and then the next step. So far too often, it just felt like when we stand at the bottom of a mountain, and I remember this distinctively from Yates, the first mountain that I climbed, we would, and I think we've done this with everyone. We stand in the parking lot and we look up at the top of the mountain and we have this moment where we point with our finger and like, we're going to be up there. Maybe we even like take a picture where the tip of the mountain is like right at the top of our finger. And we're thinking, from where we stand here in the parking lot, we plan on being at the top of that within the next few hours. And that is completely overwhelming. How are we going to do that? Literally one step in front of the next. And so it felt like, the moment that kind of connects you between standing in the parking lot and then standing on that peak is just the understanding after doing it that how I get there is one foot in front of the next. Do you want to go any deeper on that?
Well, I think that we can't negate the fact that it's like the planning aspect. And I think just to kind of touch a little bit on that, because if we just said one foot in front of the other, and if you look too far ahead, it's not going to work and you overwhelm yourself by looking at the top. Having said that, I think it's important and understanding so that we also had goals, right? We did our homework. We knew where we wanted to go. We understood our trail. We understood our map. We did our research with what are the conditions going to be. And so I do want to go on to the simplicity of you saying just one foot in front of the other. But I also don't want to negate the planning that goes into that. And maybe that's something you can touch on, given the fact that you just got back from your quarterly retreat this weekend.
Oh, the planning. You want me to walk me through what you're asking? You want me to, because I feel like I could derail what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but just kind of like talk a little bit, because I know there were some epiphanies this weekend also. I don't want to negate the planning, because I think when we just say it's just one foot in front of the other, we're negating some of the planning that goes in just before I want to go into the simplicity of one foot in front of another, and just keep it brief, but just kind of talk a little bit about this weekend without using any names, and just epiphanies that people have when they start to plan. They write things down and they're like, oh, wow, this is how it happens.
I think the biggest thing, and I'm actually glad you brought this up, because the one step in front of the other gets to happen because of the level of preparation before you go into it. So absolutely, the preparation is clutch for, I think, everything in life, quite frankly. When we're talking about the weekend workshop that I hosted with the VIP group, we had such a different array of experiences, because this is the first quarterly review that we have done. And it really was a moment to highlight who had done a lot of preparation work and who hadn't, and the lessons that were learned from the doing or the not doing. And it really went to show the way that when we do show up and we do plan out with intention, when we do look at the year as a whole, and then we start breaking it down into pieces quarterly, and then we started breaking it down monthly, and then we started breaking it down weekly, and then daily, and then even to the point of time blocks throughout the day. And what we did find...
That's where I want you to hang on to that, because that's now one foot in front of another.
That's right. Yeah.
Right. So we've talked about the top of the mountain, the year. We've gone down, you've broken it down into months, into quarters, into weeks, into days, into time blocks.
Yeah.
And that's important, because now that takes us to just one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
Because I know that there's some overwhelm this weekend, and I think that's true when you sit down and try to plan your whole year. People don't do it because they get afraid. There's the overwhelm. It's like, oh my goodness, that is so much work to do. And that's what I wanted you to hit on by talking about this weekend, was how planning gets broken down, into little subsets, which eventually becomes one. I mean, if that mountain is 2,600 meters and you got to go 14 kilometers, those are all like the years. Oh wow, that's so huge.
Well, and
But
that's you saying that, that's the goal, right? Like, as we're sitting down and we're planning, our eye is on the prize. Like, our eye is on getting to the summit, and as we're sitting around planning in the workshop, it's when you know where you're going and you plan out a route to get there, then the one step in front of the other is where you just get to keep going. And what was so beautiful about, if we didn't have a clear path of where we were going, it was a lot harder. It was a lot more difficult to put one foot, because you kind of would go, elements, or metaphorically speaking, elements or situations in life, if we're referring back to the actuality, can just come and derail you. And if you're not clear on where it is you're going, you're very easily derailed. And once you're
yeah,
derailed, you don't end up making it to the summit, because you don't know where you ended up, because
well,
even though
or
you're taking
if you
steps, you
do,
get lost.
you can get into trouble, and it might be twice as long. But
Yeah.
that the path is important. The planning is important. But I think
Yeah.
out of all those things, which is a whole nother topic, and back to this lesson, it's the one foot in front of the other. The thing that I want to add to that is, I know that there were so many times where I got super overwhelmed. Not at the beginning, because there's this excitement and there's this full of
Yeah.
energy, and it's a new day, it's a new climb. But as you got going, and it's interesting, they call them false summits, and pretty much every mountain has a false summit. It's a place that you get to that looks awesome. It feels, you kind of got summit views, and it looks pretty awesome. And a lot of
Yeah.
people get there and they turn around. And I found at a lot of the false summits, when you got there, you're like, oh yes, I'm here. I've arrived. And then you look at the maps and you're like,
You look up. Yeah.
oh, well, that's actually like the hardest part, which
The
we'll
heart. Yeah.
talk about in a bit. But to get there, how do I get there? Like, how am I physically going to be able to get there? That is
Yeah.
massive. That is overwhelming. And then it just came back to, and I reminded myself, it's like, I remember the one hard one I did with Aaron, and I saw these two little people so far up there, and I'm like, there's no way. There's no way.
Was this from the summit too? Like, you were at a false summit?
Yeah, this was on Wasouch, and we're in a false summit. And I was like, "Good, I'm good here, dude." Like, I can't feel my legs, my lungs aren't working,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Yeah, I think it's there," and I'm like, "Yeah, no, that's not us. Why would we go? That's not our skill set. That's Look at that thing." And then I seen people there, and I was like, "Ooh," he goes, "Yeah, that's where we gotta go," and I was so defeated because I wanted to have arrived already.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and literally in my head, I was like, I'm defeated. I'm done. How will I do this? And all I remembered was, you just put one foot in front of the other. When you get tired, you just take a break, and you just put
Yeah.
one foot in front of the other. We know our route. We've planned it. We know the way to the top. But it's
Hmm.
just that, like you said, those time blocks every single day of like, Kim, I'm going to put away an hour to work on this project. I'm going to get up an hour early. I'm going to sit in my office, and I'm going to get these things done before the busy of the day gets going. And that is just one foot in front of another. And I think that starting a business, running a business, being successful at a business is extremely overwhelming.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of it's comparison with how other people are doing it.
Hmm.
But if we truly just, put our heads down and say, just one foot in front of the other, 1 hour at a time, one day at a time. Tomorrow, I'm just going to do a little better. I think eventually you're standing there and you're looking back at where you were questioning, and you're like, really,
Yeah.
that wasn't that far or bad.
Yeah.
And
I want to touch on that, because it's literally like, as we just broke down, we look at our main goals for the year, and then we looked at what did or didn't work for the last quarter, and then we looked at what is working for this, what we want to plan for this quarter. And there really becomes a moment when you know that in a period of time, with clarity and intention, you created a map and you set out a plan, and then the weeks between become following the plan and trusting that in a time and a place, you created something to guide you along the way, and you have to continue to lean into that one step in front of the other. And it doesn't mean elements don't come. It doesn't mean distractions or, having to take a detour and then find your way back doesn't come, but it does. This idea of laying out a plan that you can follow really gives you that sense of security to be able to come back to the ultimate goal of where it is you're trying to go, and trust in the plan, like trust in the layout that you had created. And I find that as we're doing the work, um, you get tired, you get fatigued. And actually, if you're cool with it, we can kind of tie this into the next one.
Yeah.
If your thoughts are kind of
Okay.
wrapped up,
Yeah.
and because I feel like it really leads into um, the number 2 is that the most dangerous part of the trek is when you're at the most physically and mentally fatigued place in yourself. And this is typically when you're close to the summit. So I remember we got to, I don't know what you call it, like we were feet away from the summit at Hauling, and I stopped and I was bent over when we were scrambling, and I said to you, I don't know how I can go on. I don't know how I can do this. It was freezing and windy and all the elements, and I was so tired.
Just add to that though, because there was a touch of ill preparedness in what you were wearing.
Yeah, because I had no.
So
I was.
So
Babe,
the elements.
My airy pants were not meant for climbing mountains. Okay,
Yeah.
my airy
Well,
leggings.
they were just
didn't
not
cut it.
when it got to minus 25 in the wind. But
Yeah.
I mean, add to that because it's like.
Oh, I didn't have my face covered.
Yeah, your face, your legs are
wind.
freezing, exhaustion. It got scary because you got out of the trees and you're into scrambling.
Yeah.
And it's like I can't go on. And you sat there and we're like, and I looked at you and I said, if you don't go on, if you, and this is all due respect to, if I truly thought you were unable.
Sure.
Like say you're climbing a 7,000 meter peak and there's a difference in all the elements there. But at this point, it's like, if you don't go to the top, if you don't dig deep and push through, you're not going to disappoint me. But I'm telling you, you're going to regret this for a long time. Because you're this close.
Focus.
And that conversation.
I think you knew that because you've been there, right? Like you knew because you've already
been there. But this conversation, I also remember, was like 10 years ago in your photography journey, where the same thing as you. I remember in our older house, and you sat there and you were done. You were bawling. You were quit. It was done. It was exhausting. Yep. Why isn't it working? How come, all these elements of your business, of your job, of your career were on you. And you were like, I can't go any further and I want to quit. Right. Yeah. Which is exactly the metaphor, because it actually, you lived it out. And I said to you, if you quit now, you'll forever regret this, because I know that true greatness exists, what we call the crux, the most difficult part of the mountain or the climb or the journey in your business. And if you quit now, you'll be forever regretful of it. And it's the same thing that you experienced there. But then that's about having the right people on your journey, and the right coach, the right business partner, the right friends in your life, the support group. There's a difference between calling it when it's over, or quitting, right? And again, that's a whole other.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah, that's a whole other a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But it was, and it's like we kind of talked about this before, and it feels like when you're at that moment, when you're so close to reaching the summit, it's just calling on every part of you to show up and push through. And it's like the preparation, the laying of the trail, all the preparation that had gone into
the gear,
knowing how to get there, the gear,
the knowledge of using the gear. So
comes into play in that moment.
Yeah. And there's also, in that moment, there is the ability to know when to turn around, because it's detrimental. And I think that's so often I see it in small businesses where people sink their entire life save. This isn't about like, hey, if you just threw a little more into it, it was going to be successful, right?
No.
There's a knowledge here, but that's about the preparation, right? And so if you
Yep.
get to that point in the mountain and you say, at all costs, I can get to the top, death is very imminent.
Right.
It's a fact. Death of your business. No, it's real talk.
I
And
know it is, and it's just funny. Of course, we have to say this because there's a yeah, it is. It isn't saying push through at all costs and make it happen, but I think you said it before. There's just a difference between those two things, pushing through and just knowing when it's time to
yeah,
turn around.
but and it goes back to this planning preparation, is that when you get to those points and you've prepared, with this is kind of talks about our last point here, but then when you have that skill set to know that this isn't quitting, this is just turning around, and then you make that decision, and that's a wise decision. But what I also have to remember is like who I take climbing with me. I need them to be of the proper mindset that we can make the decision together and
Yep.
know that we just have to come back and try it again, which
I feel like
definitely
this
happens.
should be part of the top 5. Like as you're saying it, it's like who you bring along the journey with you.
It was one of mine. You didn't put it in.
Oh, we only have time for 5.
Oh, we'll have to come back and do it again.
But part 2. But as you're saying it, I just think if you have the wrong people along the journey with you, they could be like, because in that moment you could have said, I see that you're struggling. It's okay. You know what? You look how far you've come, and you could have made it like you've done a really good job. This is already incredible. This is already more than you thought you could do. It's good. It's enough. And the difference in that moment was you knew I was capable of more. And you knew because we've already gone through this, as mentioned before, a decade ago when we pushed through. And I remember you saying to me 10 years ago, this is the difference where people give up. This is the moment where people give up. But the people who will succeed at this are the people who get through this moment, through this. And so it felt very like whoop, 10 years later on the mountain in that moment, and it being like, remember this, remember that moment where if we just push a little bit harder and we've leaned into trusting what it is we prepared, and we're going after a goal that was ultimately the goal all along. And so in the moment you could have said, it's enough, let's go back down, this is already incredible what you've done. But you knew that that wasn't what I came for, and you knew that I was fully capable of getting up there. And when I got to the top, I cried like a baby. I like dropped to my knees and I just started crying, and I was like, I cannot believe I've accomplished this. And the biggest lesson for me through that was I had this incredibly clear, beautiful moment where I thought I would have bet against myself for this. I wouldn't have even bet I was able to do this. And I remember thinking, if I can do this, which I totally would have bet against myself that I couldn't, what else is possible? What else am I capable of? And doing that climb allowed me to think that in my life. It allowed me to immediately translate. I was crying and I was excited, and it was windy and the tears were frozen, and you guys were like so excited and hugging me, and it was the most beautiful thing. I said, this is, aside from having babies, this was the hardest thing that I'd literally ever done. And then I thought, what else is possible? And that's a gift you get only when you push through and you get
And
to
you
the top.
experience those moments. And what else are you telling yourself or subconsciously telling yourself that you can't do? So kind of wrapping up, number 2 here is for me the fascinating part about it is the beginning of the journey on the mountain is when you're at your most energetic level. You're not fatigued, you're not tired, but yet that seems like it's somewhat of the easiest. And the the lesson out of it is like that, but that's just not how it works. As much as you want it to work like that, it's just not how it works. But then that is probably why succeeding is for very few people, and that's a fact. And by getting to the summit is for very few people. If everybody hit every summit that they tried, and we're talking, smaller mountains that we're climbing versus mountains like Everest, Annapurna, some of the 8,000ers over in the Himalayas. Not everybody that sets out to do it does it, and people spend a lot of money and a lot of time training and planning. But that's kind of the thing, is like, we might not do it, and that's the challenge and the beauty. But yeah, just a weird thing how rewarding it is to get to the top, knowing that the hardest part of the journey was when you were at your perceived weakness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is that all for that one?
Well, I just feel like these are all just mishing together, because that really leans into number 4. But we could. Do you want to go there? No, stick to number 3.
Let's do number 3.
Okay.
Because it's next.
Okay.
Number 3. Go ahead. Read that one out.
The challenge of the journey is the mountain's way of checking to see if you're worthy of what's on top.
Yeah.
So you have to be willing to put in the work. And we have talked about this often in our businesses. We see a lot of people. My favorite metaphor around this is that people want to win the race without running it. They
want the, like in a marathon, they want the shirt, the whether they win it, they want to say, I did it. They got the participation plaque or whatever.
Like some people would be happy to have the helicopter drop them on the top of the mountain so they could get the photos, say they did it.
And that's not wrong. But to say to go and say you achieved something that you didn't achieve, but I don't think that they're saying they climbed it. I think for them, it's like they want that photo at the top of the mountain.
Yeah.
And that photo for me is the ultimate reward of just, you can't say enough about literally coming up to the edge and just seeing like, wow, like it's.
Well, the view you only get from being up there, right?
But is it the same if you just got dropped off in a helicopter?
No, because the journey is necessary for the top of the mountain to be the gift that it is.
I agree, but that's because you get it. There's a lot of people that are very entitled, privileged, the non-merit based achievements, stuff's handed to them, given to them. They didn't have to go through the journey. They just were like handed something, and it's like, is it as sweet? I don't know. It's like that's a question that I don't know the answer to. I would say it's not, because I deeply believe that journey, what you went through to get there, made that so sweet.
Well, that's the whole metaphor of, it's not the destination, it's the journey, right? And it's all about who you become along the journey. Because if you don't have the journey, it doesn't force you to face all the things that come into your path. If you're just, I think it's like you saying this reminds me of when I was about to get my first car. My parents wouldn't buy it for me. And, at 16, I just wanted my first car. And they just said, you won't appreciate it if we give it to you. You have to earn it, which is something that carried on throughout our lives. And it feels like this is no different from that. If you really want the gift of what that achievement is, then you had to go through something to get it. If you just get it, the value. But I don't know how you answer that, for people who are gifted or given things without the journey. I can't speak to that. I could assume.
But I will speak to it, and that's very arrogant of me to say, but I will, because I truly know what is forged in the fire, what is created out of the journey, what is built out of your character as you build your business, as you try and you fail and you try and you fail and you try and you succeed and then you fail. And then you got to go through those ebbs and flows, and you got to go through those, the pain, the suffering, the challenge of quitting. If that doesn't exist, you'll never be truly successful, because I think it's fascinating when people are like, oh man, tell us about your story. Well, I don't know. It just was amazing. It's an interesting thing to me. But the mountain, it's not prejudice. It's not racist. It doesn't pick favorites. It is what it is. And it says, if you're worthy to come to the summit, if you're worthy to see what's at the top, then you got to go through this journey.
Yeah.
And the journey can evolve and change for everybody just based on conditions, not on who you are. I mean, you can set yourself up to make that journey a lot sweeter, based on preparation, planning, all these things that go into it. But that unbiased mountain is pure and magical. And it's fun. It's fun when you get to the top and you know that it's kind of like, all right, you've earned me. Come stand here. This is for you.
It's a gift.
Yeah.
And then it's very scary because I'm petrified of heights, actually.
It's
funny because I get up there and I like love it and have the feeling, and I'm like, okay, I need to get down from here because I'm afraid. I'm scared.
So I think all these kind of lead up into the fifth one. But I think that's an interesting thing to unpack, because I wouldn't say I'm scared of heights, but I know whether it's a deep respect or a fear, but like getting to the top, sometimes stand there, it's like, oh my goodness, that's like,
yeah.
and I said this before, but it's like you get this feeling like you want to jump, and I don't know, it's not a sadistic thing, but it's this weird feeling of like, what would it feel like to slide or fly down that other side? I don't know. But I find that the more I get to the top, I can truly stand at the edge, and I don't have this like, not because I don't think I was.
You
afraid
love
of
to
heights.
hang out up there. You love to hang out up there, and you're
but
like
that's
close
only,
to the edge.
But that's only
I'm panicking.
become more recent, because I've learned, which is a whole other lesson, but like just getting to sit there at the top and enjoy. And so we can say through that, when you do have wins, small wins, big wins in your business, it's okay to sit there and say, I'm going to celebrate this. I'm going to enjoy this. You don't have to say, cool, okay, great, back to work. Like take some time to take it all in, because you did put in the work. You did earn it. You did put one foot in front of the other.
It's so funny you say that, though, because that's the thing we even talked about that at the retreat this weekend, where we don't pause. We're so busy prepping for the next mountain that we just get up, okay, check, got it done, and we're on our way back down so we can climb the next one. And there is beauty in embracing the success of what it was. I just have to connect that to my not being by the edge. Freaks me out a bit.
But the more you get up there, I'm telling you, it's gonna change that feeling.
So this is lessons from somebody who's doubled, tripled the amount of times that I've gone. So I look forward to that.
Recap. We said number one lesson is just one foot in front of the other. It's when it all seems overwhelming, it's just one foot in front of the other, one day at a time, one step at a time. Number two.
One time block at a time.
One time block at a time. Number two was, I don't know this one didn't sound right as a lesson, but the most dangerous part of the journey, the trek on the mountain, is often the point at which you're almost there. So the scariest part in your business journey, the part that makes you want to quit, is often the moment to which you become most successful or victorious. So I don't know how that's really the lesson part of it, but like, don't let it make you quit on that aspect. Number three is the challenge, the journey is the mountain's way of checking whether you're worthy of the destination. And I truly believe that whatever you believe in life, or karma, or however you believe it, it's like life has a way of checking you to see if it's what you really want. Is this really what you want? Like, and then you got to battle through some stuff, and then it's like, is this really how bad do you want it? And
how bad do you want it? Yeah.
Yeah. And then number 4, did we do number 4, or are we on 4?
No, we're on 4. Go ahead.
The journey may be uncomfortable. Okay. But also know that the top of the mountain isn't meant for everybody.
I think this swings back nicely to kind of what you were talking about, how there are people who will get to the false summit and that's enough. And they're as satiated at the false summit as we are at the top. They are that to get there is a success to them. And that's as far as they need to go. And then they're ready to go back down.
Yeah. And I think this one is kind of short and sweet, but it's the idea of it's not for everyone. Success isn't for everyone. And that's okay. And that is truly okay. Because everybody thinks I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm a person who wants to be, I am driven. I'm successful. I'm hard work, all these things. And it's like, no, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. And that's also okay. And it's tough. And there's, it's a choice you got to make because you understand what it comes with. And like we say so many times, I pass people going up and I'm like, did you make it to the top? And they're like, well, yeah, we got to so like, yeah, but we got to, well, like you did or you didn't. That's just, but to them, it's like, the top of what we wanted to get to. Yeah. And that's right. I was always confused. I'm like, well, I thought this is why you started. You used to go to like the top. That's what this is. And it's the competitive mindset in me from playing professional sports and all that stuff where I'm like, why would somebody not want to go to the top? And I was confused by that. But when I got to the point at which they got to, I was like, wow, this is pretty cool. And I get it. It would be cool to turn around right now. And not going to lie, many times I thought to myself, cool photos from here. And like but that's where you got to forge yourself. That's where you got to put in the time, whether you have a good business partner, whether you have good people in your business, whether you sit down and probably most importantly, have a coach who holds you accountable to that stuff. And it's like, that's with me and Aaron, and as most climbing, we did more than me and you did, but that having Aaron there was just like, well, this isn't good enough, right? You're sure this is right? I'm not. And we're just checking each other to see, like, you wanting to quit? Am I wanting to quit? You're not going to quit, so I'm not going to quit. And so in that, the drive to get to the top became a fire in your belly, and it wasn't good enough. And probably I remember that thing I said to you, and I remember 10 years ago when it's like, this is the point at which most people turn around in their business, in their journey. I can't tell you how many people have said to me over the years, oh yeah, I used to guide also. And I'm like, okay. But then they go to allude to some story about how the outfitter was tough, or they got sick of dealing with people. Or like, how many people say to you, I used to be a wedding photographer, like at weddings. Oh, I used to shoot weddings all the time, and just the people, so there was always the crux at which they couldn't somehow get past, to which they made this excuse. Probably more so was to allude to why they weren't successful, right? The wind, the weather, the waist deep snow. That's why we didn't go to the top. And I don't think that's true. I think it's they're missing the it factor that takes
like
you
the
to
drive
the top.
that you're saying?
Yeah, I call it, when I coached, I looked for the it factor. And it's hard to describe. And I see it in people I work with. I see it in people I guide with. I see it when
it's
you're
like a fire in your belly.
Yeah, it's just something different. They're built different. They have this it factor, and it's like, hey, that person's gonna go to they're gonna want to go to the top. What, you
Yeah.
know, how they prepare and do all these things to get there. At least they have the want, the desire, the it. That's
Yeah.
gonna separate them from
And
just
I do
arriving at the false summit.
think it's important that it's to each his own with that, right? You're not less of a person if you don't go to the top, because some people, it doesn't. I think that's really what I'm learning, is that some people are just as satisfied with being out and the doing, and it was never about getting to the top. It doesn't
Yeah, and
doesn't feel them the same.
what we get from being at the top, what we get from driving ourselves every day to be successful, what we get from investing in ourselves and our businesses to make them the best that they can be, it's not for everyone, and that is okay. I mean, it
Yeah.
is okay, because
Each his own.
but it's pretty cool when you do get to sit at the top.
Yeah.
and I'm sure that most people, it's not that they don't want to get to the top, it's that they use the false summit as an excuse to sort of feel like they made it.
Yeah.
But it's like, and that goes deeper into the
Yeah.
stories they tell themselves as life goes on, that, oh, I played professional hockey too. Where'd you play? Well, it wasn't a recognized league in North Korea at the time. Well, it's always something that doesn't make sense.
Well, here's the thing too, is we kind of talked about this too, is that these North Korea, there's a lot of excuses that we will put in, like lies we tell ourselves, right? We make up a lot of baloney. And I know this, working with in the job that I do, I catch myself doing it. The more I learn, is we lie to ourselves about what is true, or we make stuff up, or we put all these barricades in between where it is we are and where it is we want to go. So we have these crutches to lean into. If we don't make it, then it can become, well, because I have this, like I think of you with your shins, and there's a couple mountains we started where you had to go through that process of working through what was happening in that pain, and never stopped you. You came home and you were like a crazy person, trying to googling it and rolling it out and trying to find all these ways to heal, because it's and I guess we don't have that lesson on here either. That's another great lesson of what happens between. It's you go climb a mountain and then you figure out what did or didn't work, and then it's what you do in between the next climb to position yourself to be better prepared for the next climb. And sequentially they get easier because you learn the lessons, you buy the proper gear. I get the better boots, I get the better pants that are actually made for climbing mountains. We prepare, and then all of a sudden the journey is more enjoyable. It doesn't mean it's not difficult.
I want to
It's
stop
more
you there,
enjoyable.
because I don't think they get easier.
No.
They become more enjoyable, because what happens is that 1900 meter mountain isn't, like, you know what I mean? You want the 2200, you want the 2600, you want the challenge, you want the 3000 meter.
Right.
And it's this weird thing. Again, not for everybody, but it never becomes easier. It just becomes more enjoyable. And I'll never forget that the one fellow we saw at the stairs at Hulling, and we were coming down and we were sliding in the trees, and we were enjoying the trip down. And this gentleman, it didn't appear to be in like the best shape, and he was on those crazy ice stairs. And he was just bent over with his poles, and he was just gassed, and he was sweating. And I felt so bad, because I'm like, man, that, like, we've already done what he's got to do, and he's got hell ahead of him. And he goes, how much further do you think I got? And I said, I bet you got an hour to an hour and a half. And he's like, awesome. I'm like, right? And he's like, yeah. If you don't embrace the suck, why even be here? And I was just like, wow, that's because
You
I'm
loved
like,
when he said that.
I did, because I'm like, that's what it is. And this guy, I don't know if he made it to the top, but he looked like he was beyond his limit at that point.
Yeah.
But for him, he was like, no, I'm going, and it sucks, and I'm gassed, and I'm sweaty, but I'm embracing the suck. And I was like, that's really freaking cool, because in entrepreneurial, it's embrace the suck, because when you get there, when you get successes, when things start to move forward with momentum, it's because of the suck. It's because you embrace the suck that this is magical right now. And yeah,
But you didn't give up.
the uncomfortableness is not for everybody, but sitting at the top is not for everybody. All right, so moving on to the last one, which is going to be an interesting conversation,
because we don't totally, I wouldn't say we don't agree with it, but you're more
let's just say,
how do we say it?
It's very deep. I think it's very deep.
I do,
It should be very deep.
Well, it's act like you've been there.
So it's like, I say, in coaching a lot, I tell people, so we got to define the word act. And I don't
act like you've been there.
It's a behavior. So it's not an act like an act like you're acting like it's not a pretend. Don't associate act with pretend. And a lot of time we do associate the two, because if you're going to act in a movie, you're pretending to be something you're not. So
walk us through what you mean, act like you've been there.
Yeah. So don't say, because I'm just trying to break word by word. So it's like, I'm not saying pretend like you've been there. I'm saying act like you've been there. So it's a behavior of, and upon further research on the statement, I believe it was kind of like a football coach said, when you get a touchdown, act like you've been there before. Basically what he was referring to is these obnoxious celebrations of like, wow, you got your first touchdown, you're doing backflips, throwing the ball, and somebody who's been there before is like, I've done this
Doesn't
before.
Need the theatrics?
Yeah, sort of. So when I tell people act like you've been there, I want them to portray a confidence and a professionalism of you've been there before. Okay, so in guiding, it's like you go out there and you act. There's a way that new people act. You can see it. You can see it on the river. So it's like, act like you've been there, and that's a level of professionalism that will be deeply respected by your clients. They won't know that you're acting, and you don't have to sit there and tell them and lie. It's not about lying. It's about acting like you've been there before. So it's a confidence that you, I can't think of the word, you portray. It's not the right word.
Embody it?
No. A confidence that you blah, blah, blah. Right? I'll think of the word. Exude. A confidence that you exude, and it's like you've been there before. So I say that, okay, but the lesson here is that the mountain, it's a no BS place, and it's not going to let you act like you've been here before unless you've been here before. Okay, and so how do we take that into business and life? And it's like, so I say, go be there so that you can then go there and act like you've been there, because you've actually been there.
Oh, and this is where the part is,
this is where your brain
feels
explodes.
Like with all these words, but it's like, do it.
Do that again.
Get out and do it. Get out and do it, so that when you just embody how you act as somebody who's been there and done it. Go do.
So there's the BS factor that exists in the world right now, especially in lots of our line of business. It's not to And we talk about people wanting to win the race without doing the race. We talk about
Running it,
people
yeah.
who, without running the race. We talk about people who, how to say this in a proper way. They want to run a business. They want to be the head of a business. They want all this stuff, but they've never been there before. Okay. They don't know what they don't know. And that's a very scary thing. And so where I took this out of the mountain was the first few times we were faced with people coming down the mountain saying, it's impossible. You can't do it. The weather's too bad. The snow's too deep. The wind is too bad. And people would come down and keep saying this. And I started looking at them like, oh, that person knows what they're saying, as they're wearing like Crocs and jeans. And I'm like, you know, what you don't know. Never forget the day the guy in jeans passed me, and it was a life-changing experience.
You called him Gino.
Gino passed me. But to remember that all these people were the noise, right? Because I hadn't been there before, and I'm got the gear, and I'm trying to learn some stuff to act like I've been there, but I can't keep the course because I haven't been there before. And so as this noise comes down, I start derailing myself, and it's like, oh my goodness, 40 people have passed us and nobody has gone to the summit today. And I'll never forget on Lady Mac, and that was it, where I was like, wow, we can't go. We literally, as more and more people kept passing us, we realized getting to the summit was not going to happen today. Okay, because no one had done it, and everybody was complaining and just saying it's impossible. As we got to the fall summit, to the point at which everybody else had turned around, and we looked way, way, way up there, and I was like, you have to be
PG.
like, this is not, I hear you. This is impossible, literally. And I don't know why I truly believed it was impossible, but what I can say, it was all the noise that entered my head throughout the entire day was that nobody had done it. So obviously it's impossible. Look at the wind, Aaron. It's really bad. Exaggerating the wind. Look at the snow. It's really bad. Look at that climb. It's straight up. We can't do this. Look at the views. They're amazing. So I started exaggerating because I hadn't been there before, and I couldn't act like I'd been there, and I couldn't make proper decisions because I didn't know what I didn't know. And that's just in business when people are like, hi, I'm a business mature and I'm going to run an outfitting service, and I've never even guided, but here I am as an outfitter, and I'll call a spade a spade. But it's like, you know, it's like you haven't been there before. How do you act like you've been there before? And on that journey, we ended up seeing two people like this big, right almost at the summit. And I was like, oh, it's
Wait
possible.
a minute.
It's actually possible.
Yeah.
And I'm
can
like,
can I just say in this moment, because I don't want to forget that I remember you telling me this and saying this is why it's important that people go and do, so that they can be a beacon of light of what is possible. And that because you saw them, you believed in all that you had just told yourself. You believed, it is possible. Look, somebody has done it.
Person.
And now, and you shifted that idea. And I just loved when you said that, because this is just a little rabbit trail, but it made me, it reminded me of what happens when we go and do and follow our callings and the things that we want to do, that we never know. When those people had no clue, when you're seeing them this big, those people have no clue that they are inspiring you in that moment to keep going. So that was another incredible lesson, and continue with the story because it's beautiful.
Well, and as this story kind of will take us to the end, and the wrap up of it all is because I saw one person doing it, and I was deeply motivated to really want to do it, but I had been listening to the wrong people because I had not been there before. And we saw these people, and I said to Aaron, we're going, and we'll make decisions upon the way that if it's unsafe or whatever, we'll turn around, but there's hope. Okay, so all we need is hope. We need one person to inspire us, and we can keep pushing through. And as we go through our business journeys, as we go through growing our business, starting our business, it's like why we need mentors and why we need a coach, why we need people to look up to who have been there before, who are doing what we want to do, because that's our inspiration to get to the top. And to kind of speed that story up, after a hellish climb, we got to what is probably the most beautiful summit to date. And as those people came down and I said to them, and they just like, they had no care to hear this or whatever, but I needed them to know. I said, you know, because you went to the top, we're going to the top. And that just fell on deaf ears and pieced out. But the importance of that to me was that and then as we came down, there was the two more people who got to the fall summit, and they're like, you guys got to the top? And we're like, we did. And the guy looked back at what I appeared to be his dad, and he said, we're going to the top. It's possible. And I was like, gosh, is that ever like, because
So
we
good.
had been there before, we could act like we had been there before, and we could come down and we can inspire other people. And now if they fell off the mountain, that's on them, because they need to know. Well, no, but I'm just,
Okay.
you know what I, no,
Okay.
but I'm
I know
but I'm serious, because you've got to be equipped
Yeah.
with your skill sets, but that
Yes.
we could come down and we could inspire people to go to where we went because we were there. And so I say, act like you've been there before, but if you've actually been there before, if you actually do, and we talk about starting, we talk about one foot in front of the other. We talk about this journey is going to be dangerous. It's going to be technically challenging. But you're going to be setting yourself up for success by the things that you're doing, the training, the planning. We're going to talk about the journey of life and how the mountain is like life, and it's going to check you and it's going to challenge you, and it's going to say, are you, Janine, worthy of success? Are you worthy of the summit? And trials and tribulations and naysayers and haters, they're all going to show up and be like, they're going to check your mettle to see if you're worthy to sit at the top. And then you got to ask yourself, is that where I really want to be? Because it's not for everybody, and that's okay. And it's really uncomfortable to get there. But I tell you what, when you do get there, it's absolutely it literally is life-changing.
Literally. Yeah.
Literally. And in your business, when you get there, and there isn't the finish line, there's just a destination. There's just one summit on your list of 10,000 mountains that you want to climb, and the journey begins again. The next one you go.
Who said that the top of one peak is the base of the next climb?
That's whoever said it's great.
Yeah.
But like,
I had to Google that.
As I sit at the top, often I'm looking across at higher ones, and I'm like, how do I get to that one? Right? And it's like, it's this really cool thing, and it's inspirational.
Because there's a whole other view from up there, right?
Totally.
Like once you're up there and you're like, this is possible. And that's relating back to what I said. It's like you get up there and it's a view you only get to experience when you're there, and then you can look around. It's like I talk about this with my girls constantly. Do the do, get into action, get doing it. And then when you get to the top of the mountain, you have a completely new vantage point of what is possible. So whether that's, launch a product or try a new business venture and do it, and in the process, whatever completion or reaching of milestones, you're going to get somewhere, and you're going to have more information to make the next actionable step. You're going to have a new vantage point. You can see better.
Why?
I took some action. I made
because
some.
You've been there before, so
better.
you can act like you've been there before.
Okay, I guess it works. You win. You win. It was good. Any wrap-up thoughts about this?
No, I think I just.
Thanks for everything you shared. Can I just say the best part is when you there was a few times I couldn't come with you. Some I was too scared to go with you, but you would always FaceTime me if you had service from the top of the mountain. And
I gave you the cheater's view.
Yeah, you. But I knew it wasn't the same. I was just so happy that you were there. It was so beautiful. And you've got some really fun footage on your Instagram account. maybe I need to go share some of that. Really fun with the different camera angles and just a different view from being up there. But I do want to reiterate that key point is that when we take advantage of doing these climbs or taking these steps or being brave enough to go out and do this, there is a whole other way to see and progress in your business and in your life once you've taken action, and you can see you have a different vantage points. You can see things different. And far too often I find that we're stationary in this place that we're in, and we're trying to make all these decisions about things that it's like I say to the girls all the time, you're looking at step 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You just got to look at step 1, 2, and 3 right now. And then when you take 1, 2, and 3, guess what all of a sudden you can see? 4, 5, and 6. You can start to see more that's in front of you and then make better decisions for where it is you want to go. So I also want to end with this. I did not have plans to climb mountains. That was Dana's plan. And he said, hey, come along with me. And I sure am glad that I did.
And I said, if you want what's at the top of the mountain,
you have to get to the top of the mountain.
All right. Well, that's it for episode 2.
Okay, and we're going to try to 2 weeks, be back in 2 weeks with more life lessons.
It's fishing season. All right.
Okay, well, see you guys in November. Thanks for being here.
Hunting season.
Oh.
All right.
Oh, to be in a
That's episode 2, lessons from a mountain and how they can affect your daily life, your business, and all of your relationships.
Hey,
so
I would love to know if you have a takeaway from this. I would love to know. I'm going to go put a post on my Instagram feed, and I would love to know wherever you watch this, where you watched it, and if you had a takeaway, because I would genuinely, I think we would both, hey babe, I would love to know.
Just call me babe.
Babe. I did.
Not
in public? Not on the show.
Yeah. What's your takeaway? What was your favorite lesson, and which one resonated most with you?
Yeah, I'd love to know.
We'll see you guys when we see you guys.
Thank you.